Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. You are going to love today's guest. He is an entertainment genius. And, when people refer to somebody else as a genius, you wonder how qualified that statement is. But what if I told you that this particular person has over 30 billion views on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok? If you add everything up, only in the past few years, it's allowed him to get on shows like Ellen or The Today Show. He's learned how to provide diverse forms of entertainment, and whether it's magic or art or creative building, through all different sorts of mediums: social media, commercials, books, TV, to different audiences. More importantly, he's been able to cut through the noise. There's this old saying, different is better than better. But I could keep going over and over and over about this guy, and we'd be talking for a while about his bio, but we're going to just jump right into it. Welcome to the show, Justin Flom.
Yo, what's happening?
Yo, man, I got to tell you, I think most impressive, and the reason why I wanted to bring you on today's show is attention is one of the most valuable currencies
That's
that
right.
anybody can get. And oftentimes, when we think about people who are able to get attention, and they started building that momentum in early to mid 2000s, and you didn't have to be that strategic to be able to get attention and build a mass audience. We're in a different world, and you really started creating an impact beginning just a couple years ago while things
Right.
were incredibly difficult.
So much of the resume that you said was pre 2020. Any of the entertainment stuff in Magic or arenas or even the television stuff was pre 2020. And then pandemic hits and everything changes. And you said different, which is for me novelty. Novelty is king because we live in a swipe world now. And every single post that you do, everything that your business does, you're kind of starting from zero. And now you're going to have to either pay for that reach in order to reach these people, or really what you're doing is you're having to catch that attention from level one every time you post. So what I've really learned to do in the last 4 years now has just been, how do you grab that attention starting from zero brand recognition every single time? So most people don't even know who I am, even though I was like the most viewed individual on the planet in the last election cycle. So November 2020, I was the most viewed person on the planet. That's crazy, but nobody knows who I am. And that's because I put the ideas and the video and views was basically a metric for currency in all of this. So everything I've done, and the following year, I was able to make it a $5 million year because of the novelty and just kind of understanding the attention marketplace now. And so now I get to talk to people like you. It is a totally different world. How does it work in order to grab attention for your business and grow now?
Awesome, dude. So let's pick this apart, right?
Yeah.
I've often talked about the importance of building both a personal and a business brand. So let's talk about both. If you want to get attention
Yeah.
on a personal and business brand, how do you do it?
Yeah, there's kind of two different ways now. We live in an algorithm world, like the swipe feed world, and it's not going away. And then we see it on all forms of advertisement and everything. So when I talk to companies, they go, I don't know what you're going to have to tell me because you're a spray paint artist, a prankster, a YouTuber. Like,
Mm,
what am I going to do with that? But the concepts are the same, which is if we live in a swipe feed world, if we are all dependent on an algorithm, then all you have to do is get to the top of that algorithm. And the way to do that is it's shifting constantly. But what I discovered in 2020 was it's all watch time.
yeah.
So if you can just make people pay attention to you longer than anyone else, then boom, you're at the top of the feed. And the way to do that was, first of all, realizing, okay, people don't care at all about you. They don't. They only care about themselves. And that was a big shift for me because I'm an entertainer. I shifted it about the customer and said, all right, let's only look at the data of what the customer wants. And that's the thing. So in 2020, I became not an entertainer, I became a data analyst. And everything became about the data. And that's why I stopped doing magic tricks and I started doing totally different stuff. Now I am dependent on what the audience tells me. I'm working heavily in the ad space on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and things like that. And I'm not working in the ad space to advertise. I'm working just to figure out how the viewer is interacting with the content, which is kind of a different thing because if you're a CEO of a company and you're creating an advertisement, the cheapest way to advertise would be to have the best piece of content, meaning it's going to be less expensive to push that thing out because it's going to have a high interaction rate. What I started doing was not just A/B testing, I'm A to Z testing. So I'll do a video, I'll do 10 different edits of it. Maybe I'll even shoot the video 10 different ways. And then I'll advertise them and I'll take a look at the data and I'll go, all right, people are interacting most with this one. It's not even the edit I like the most. It's not what I like. It's not what makes me look best. But that's the one that gets posted because that's the one with the high engagement rate. And then that way, oftentimes I know if I have a banger hit of a piece of content before it's even posted because I have the data that backs it up. So it's a totally new world now where you get to explore the data side and make all of your decisions there.
I'm really glad you brought that up because there's a lot of things embedded in that. And one of them is guesswork. A lot of people put something out there and they're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And they don't track the data enough to be able to know with evidence, here's what's working and what's not working. So the data is critical. In fact, the most successful people that I've interviewed and have spoken with and work with, data is first and foremost. They make very data-based decisions. But data is one thing. Knowing what to look for in the data is the other thing. And that's where they often go wrong. Let's look at two different. The first one will say organic social. What are the most important KPIs for the organic social? And then we're going to go to the paid ads and what are going to be the most important KPIs on the paid side. So what are the KPIs that our listeners should be paying attention to?
Hollywood made this mistake. It's not a mistake. They just didn't have access to this sort of data that we have now, where when you walk down Hollywood Boulevard, they'd say, hey, we'll give you a free sandwich and $100 if you just come in here and watch this new episode of a TV show we're working on. And then as you watch it, at the end, they interview you. And they're like, what did you think? What did you like? This is actually wrong because people don't know what they like. People look at their TikTok algorithm and they're like, boy, this isn't what I want. Yeah. No, it actually is. And it might be depressing to you to realize because the truth is you are making your decisions unconsciously with your eyeballs. And TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Facebook, they know, all right, you're hanging out for an extra 10 seconds on this piece of content and they log that data. So when I talk to influencers or companies, I go, the data you have to look at is not what the customer is saying. That, like I said, views are a currency to me. That's because it's all translates to money. So my end game is to get the most views possible. That's how I get the most money possible. So the way that I do that is I don't listen to the commenters. Yeah. The data that I'm looking at predominantly, and it changes, right now it seems still watch time is king. So if I'm looking at an advertisement, I want to see, are they watching this longer because that will make the ad less expensive and thus I'll be able to do more with it. So for the couple of years, the platforms made a little bit of a mistake in making watch time the most paramount. You can kind of hack to get long watch times, even on mediocre content, just by making it longer. People aren't happy watching a 20-minute video for a singular payoff. So now they've kind of shifted it a little bit, and there's an algo shift every day, but kind of a big algo shift once a month. And so now they're looking at, okay, shares. We want more shares. And so that means that whatever piece of content you're doing, it's getting harder, has to be novel at the top. Like, you got to be exciting and something that they haven't seen before. Has to be about them, the viewer, what's in it for me. So rather than I'm making money and this is how I'm doing it, it's you could be making money and this is how you do it.
Sure.
The social pressure of staying there. But the barrier to exit on a social media little video is 1 inch. So with that low of a barrier of exit, that means that what you're providing to the viewer has to be crazy high. Now, luckily, it doesn't have to be so high that it would compete with an NFL football game, because you are competing with the entire history of human knowledge in the palm of their hand,
Sure.
and they could do anything. So whatever they're doing, you got to tell them, I'm not wasting your time. This is something you haven't seen before, and you are going to utilize it. And that's the thing. What's important is, do they feel that, and do
Sure.
they want to hang out for it?
I believe that consumption drives conversion from a sales perspective. The more content somebody consumes, the more it helps to create demand, and ultimately, the more likely they're going to consume. So, one of the metrics that I look at now, especially on the paid side, because we can look at it this way, is what is my cost per consumption? So, how much does it cost me to get somebody to watch 75% of the video? Roughly a different benchmark. If somebody is watching 75% of the video or 100% of the video, and they're able to do it for less than $2, it tells me something differently than having somebody watch $10 to get to 75 to 100%. And it allows me to better optimize my content. And you said something interesting. I have gotten to the point over and over again over the last 14 years where I have been humbled because I've truly believed that one headline or one piece of content or one thing would be so much better than everything else, only to realize it was not the case. Now, when I'm working with a client, I tend to have a much higher
Yeah.
success rate, but when I'm working for myself, it's much lower.
Yeah.
But that's because we're reading the label from inside the bottle, and we're missing something when we're working for ourselves that we don't have, and that's fresh perspective.
It's ego. I took my ego out back and shot him 4 years ago, because
Yeah.
I just went, all right, it's not about me and it's not about what I like. It has to be about what the viewer likes. The metric that's really important to me right now is how many people are getting to 25%. Because that time frame is actually, to me, it's the most important. Yes, I want to see them finish, but if you do everything right within the content creation, then if you've got them at 25%, you got them to 100. The hardest thing is to get them to 25%. So when I'm looking at the data on how people are interacting with anything I do, I want to see, all right, what percentage is getting a quarter of the way in? And I want that for sure to be above 30%. But really, if it's above 60%, then I know I'm in a really good spot. Now, I'm looking at 60-second content, 3-minute content. So if you've got them to a quarter, that means they've committed themselves to hang out until they get what you've told them you're going to give them. So the rule is, don't give it to them until the end. So you have to make it enriching for the listener the entire time, but you do want to keep it until the end, not just for the listener, because we live in a swipe feed algorithm, and the only way to get your message to the top is to have that sort of engagement on it. So we're all kind of been turned into broadcasters or entertainers in a way, just to get the message out.
Now, I know that a number of our listeners are probably saying, "Oh, I hate it when people do that. That annoys me. I hate content." Yada. But if you were to set them up and give them the understanding, and so you're still
Right.
offering value.
I geek out about every word. Now,
Yeah.
this is that example where people say they don't like that, but the data says otherwise. I agree as well. And in terms of the algorithm and getting your company's advertisement or your message to the top of that algorithm, if you open with it and you give people something, they don't know it's valuable because they haven't heard the pitch on why it's valuable. We've all seen really good pieces of business advice or really funny pieces of content with no views because it was too short, it opened with it, and it doesn't have the engagement to move to the top. So,
Sure.
but that's the main lesson that I push now is just you're a broadcaster. That's the thing.
That the creating this content that Justin's talking about is an essential part of creating, capturing, and nurturing demand. It's staying top of mind. An example I often use to our board of directors clients is the Remarkable tablet. I was at an event and I noticed that 2/3 of the people had a Remarkable tablet. So I went online and I looked up Remarkable. But then I said, why would I need to buy this? Because I do not need a Remarkable tablet. Now, Remarkable did something different. Remarkable said he doesn't think he needs a Remarkable tablet right now, but there's a lot of other things that he hasn't considered that if we educate him on the different things, then maybe we'll change his mind. And so they retargeted. And I saw messages over and over and over again. And the laws of effective frequency dictate that it takes 20 brand impressions to go from I don't know who they are to all of a sudden I want to do business with them. And so I saw static messages offering different angles and different perspectives. And they were so persistent with the content everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, that it didn't take long before I found myself online ordering a Remarkable tablet, and I knew exactly what they were doing. It's a critical part of creating, capturing, and nurturing demand. But let's look at the social platforms right now for a minute, because I know that there's a lot out there. And you may have people asking, okay, Justin, which platforms should I be on? I'm in B2B. I understand this for B2C. What if it was B2B? Is there ever an exception to the industry, and what platform?
It's a great question. Flexibility to meet demand is a big thing for me because there was no demand for magic tricks. So first I have to look at the data. Then I have to have the flexibility to be like, all right, they don't want magic tricks. I've tried every different way to give them that product, but there was no demand for it. But then I did this weird little spray paint thing, and there was high demand for that. So I dropped everything and became a spray paint artist and met that demand, and the demand went up, and I was able to follow that and track that, and now it's created a totally new business. Now the answer to which social media platform gave that demand, well, the answer is all of them. That's the depressing thing. Yeah. Is you got to be out there on all of them. I make my decisions based off of who's going to pay me the most. So that's where I put the most effort. So right now the most effort's going into YouTube, but also I kind of put YouTube on autopilot early on because the money was terrible over there, but the interaction was high. Now it's still not equal to what can happen on long form over on Facebook or something in terms of the rev share in ads on Facebook or TikTok or things like that. It seems to be Facebook pays the most long form just in swipe feed algorithm. And then it goes down to YouTube. Maybe TikTok it switches between YouTube and TikTok, but it's all about, are they playing an ad in the middle? And Facebook is the only one that does that.
How would you determine which platform? Or is it true all of them? I mean, look, the reality is you can shoot one piece of content, like the content you and I are recording right now, and this one piece of content will then go to my team and they will edit it for every social media channel. Yes. And you can easily distribute it through programs like a Sprout Social, or maybe you've got one that you prefer.
My first $250,000 over on YouTube was not any YouTube content. It was a back catalog of content that was only on Facebook. It had only ever been on Facebook. And I give it to a member of my team and I go, just cut all of these videos down to 60 seconds and put them up every day on YouTube. And that was the first $250,000, was just old content repurposed. And what I tell companies now is go to TikTok, go to YouTube, and look at the opening shots of some of these viral videos. Just look at your feed of what you're watching and look at the opening shot. And take the concept of that and figure out a way to tie it into your product. Because, again, You just need novelty, and you need to grab their attention to get them through the video, so that then you can start to get that repeat, get that product in front of their eyes the 20 times that you're talking about. They do not become fans. I tell people I don't have fans. I maybe have a few, but for the most part, I have passive viewers who will watch my stuff. They didn't choose to. They just hang out and watch it as they've been swiping. But that eyeball is worth money to me, and I get paid whether they know me or not.
But that's
Uh,
the goal that you went for,
yes,
right? And I think it's important also for the viewer to understand that for some people, they want the fans.
and it's a
Fans,
different thing. So you look at a Joe Rogan or a Logan Paul. These people are destination content, meaning I don't swipe to see them. I search out and
yeah,
I go, "Ooh, who did he interview? I want to go see that." And I go and I click and I
exactly.
watch it. And that's why the CPM on that is so much higher,
Yep.
because the viewer will watch an ad before they even get to the video,
Sure.
because they want to see it. They chose to see it. Now, a guy like Gary Vee, he's a swipe guy. Now I know him because I've seen him now 100 times on my newsfeed. But being a swipe guy, I've never watched an ad before his content. He's always hooked me at the beginning,
Yep.
and then I want to see what he has to say. The destination content guys, if they have the skill set and the likability to build a fan base that actually search them out and watch them, they don't need to worry about opening shots. They don't need to worry about crazy big starting lines. They Title is important, headline as you say it.
Mhm.
But Mr. Beast, besides the concept, the form, I'm watching it anyway because I like him as a guy and I want to
Entertainment.
watch the thing. But most of Mr. Beast's stuff in his long form wouldn't work in a swipe feed. It works because we're clicking him on the homepage. Does that kind of difference make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
Right.
Justin, I know we're pushing up against the clock right now, and I want to be respectful of your time. Where this is the Beyond Seven Figures podcast, what would you say is your biggest, best tip for the CEO and founder that wants to take their business beyond seven figures?
Scaling is the challenge. So the challenge that I'm running into is, what I do best is, how do I get someone else to do it? Because my I only have so many hours. And that's the challenge. So for me, it's finding editors, and it's finding people to be on camera, because I haven't found somebody to do it as good as me. So what I'm having to do is go, all right, do I take a hit and get somebody who's 50% worse, but it'll free up my time and I'll be able to do more with my time? So, yes, that edit is not going to be as good, or yes, that design isn't going to be as good, or that blurb that we're writing isn't as good, but I have now more bandwidth to do more. So, I'm trying to do that. I'm not the best at it because I'm a control freak and I want my hands on everything. I'm doing my best to learn how to scale it, and really the most valuable thing has just been following the data. That's where the most
Yeah.
growth and money has come in, because I was a very successful magician. And this is one of the things I tell business owners. I go, do the stuff for free because it will absolutely pay you back. And I get there, and all the executives of Coca-Cola are sitting in the front row, and their publishing company within Walmart is sitting there as well. So from this free show, by the end of the day, I had a book deal at Walmart and I had a Coca-Cola commercial, just
Mm,
because I was there and available. And so I did really well as a magician. But then when the data said, we'll pay you 5 times as much if you were to, you know, shove crickets down your pants and fall in a pool on YouTube, I went, all right, well, I can do that too. I'm going to
yeah.
follow the data there and do that. So the scaling has mostly been from following the demand that the
Uh,
audience has, the customer. And then the way that I'm going to get above that is to figure out how to scale and let go of the reins as much as I can.
well, I think that's smart. A lot of people are feeling the same thing, and when we look at the time that you're spending on any one particular project, task, or whatnot, we look at it in terms of what you could call either ROE, return on effort, or return on time. And many times we find ourselves doing things that are worth less than how we value our time. So we have to have the right systems and processes to support the good people. So we have people, we have the processes, and we have technology. So we have to start with the process. And once I'm able to
That's
follow the
great.
process exactly as I laid it out, I'm able to hire someone. And then I can hire someone, I can watch them go through it, then I get those consistent results over and over again. And now it no longer is dependent on me. But where a lot of people are going to fail is number one, they're going to say, I don't have the time, bandwidth, or the patience to document your own system or process. That's fine. But if you're going to do it anyway, just record yourself doing it and have somebody else do it, record it for you.
Great.
And the other way that people fail is that they don't go through the process themselves and get the same results they would have expected by following it exactly. So you got to go through it yourself. And then once you go through it itself and get the exact results, then the third way they fail is by handing it to somebody and not watching, observing, and being able to provide some sort of feedback loop to make sure that you get consistent results. But once you're able to get those three things done, you can really delegate and scale almost anything. If you have a great system or process, you can take anybody with a base level of skill and turn them into an A player because they're just following something that's already proven.
And that's something my best friend Ricky Lax started it. And he took video creation and took it down to a process. She's a sociology professor, but she followed the process after watching me do it, and it was laid out, bullet pointed. She had a 100 million hit video that made her 50 grand. Boom. And so anyone can do this thing if you follow the right steps. That's the way you laid that out is perfect.
Awesome. Now, let's say people want to learn more about you and the work that you do. Where do we send them?
You can check out YouTube at Justin Flom, Facebook, Justin Flom Official, or justinflom.com if you want to reach out to me directly and speak to me about any of this stuff.
Got it. Well, Justin was the most viewed man in November of 2020. So if you're just looking for some sort of inspiration and ideas and getting a sense for some of the stuff that he's doing that's working, do check him out. Justin Flom and all those different media channels. Now, for additional tips, strategies, and information for taking your business beyond 7 figures, remember to also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Gadet with my new friend Justin Flom, and I will see you in another episode.